84 anni e mezzo, non hai la moglie, non hai figli, sei il trifolao numero uno.
Va bene.
Posso conoscere i tuoi posti, posso sapere qualche tuo posto, oppure posso venire con te per tartufi in modo da capire.
Quello mai, quello mai. Per tartufi andiamo coi cani dalle tue parti o andiamo a un posto che non vado né io né te. Io vengo, ma è un posto che non sai nemmeno te. Andiamo a un posto che nessuno sa, andiamo in un bosco, per esempio là, di qua di là, vedi quei boschi là.
Sì?
Andiamo, nessuno sa se c'è tartufi o non ci sono, ci saranno. Ma io sicuramente non vengo dove vai tu e nemmeno non
Però,
viene dove vado io.
Aurelio, tutto il tuo sapere, se domani ti succede
Eh, eh,
qualcosa, se non stai bene, va perso. È quello il problema, è un dramma, è un dramma.
è un dramma, allora fai così. Tu cerca di preoccuparti per te o se hai famiglia per chi che hai. Non preoccuparti né per me né per perché poi la cosa bella, ricordati bene, la cosa bella è bene trovare un posto che, che tu non lo immaginavi. Tu hai col tuo cane bravo, perché bisogna avere, perché bravo o meno bravo, ma però se hai un cane bravo, tu se non dai fiducia al tuo cane, non andare per tartufi, fai un altro mestiere, è come che tu studi, hai un bravo professore, ma magari poi c'è un professore 3 e 2, magari ti dà il diploma e mi
Sì,
ha fatto male.
Aurelio, quello sono cose vere, ma parlando proprio di praticità, della stagione dei tartufi, se tu non ci sei, tutti quei posti
Ecco,
rimangono per anni, magari
no,
rimangono per sempre
bravo,
inesplorati.
però allora,
Forse è meglio trovare un accordo, parlarsi, dire finché ci sono io non vieni, finché... Perché è davvero importante, è importante il ricambio generazionale per noi, ma è
allora
anche per te, perché se tu avessi un figlio, io sono convinto che tu glielo insegneresti.
non insegno neanche ai figli.
Hi, my name is Caroline Libresco, and I am the founding director of a program called Sundance Catalyst.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm Michael Dweck, one of the directors, producers, and cinematographers of the Truffle Hunters.
And I'm Gregory Kershaw, the other director, producer, and cinematographer of the Truffle Hunters.
So tell me what drew you to this place? The town is called Piedmont, right? Or how do you pronounce it?
Piedmont is the region, and
Piedmont's the region.
And there's a center of the truffle trade. It's called the town is called Alba, and that's sort of the commercial center of the truffle trade. But really, most of our filming was done deep in the secret forests around that area. This world, it felt like moving through it. It felt like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a feeling, there was something sort of magical in the air. It was a place that had held on to its identity. There was a continuity with the local tradition, and it didn't feel like it had been taken over by global technology and global culture. And that alone is just so fascinating. But then we had heard about these truffle hunters, and we had heard these, whisperings of these old men who went into the woods, into their secret truffle forest in the middle of the night with their dogs to find the white truffle, which sometimes sells for as much as gold. I mean, it's a mushroom, it's a fungus that sometimes sells for as much as gold. And so, when we were just there before we started thinking about this as a film project, we had asked around and said, can we meet some of these guys? And everybody said, no, you can't meet these guys. No one even knows who they are. I mean, so there was a secret. And we're like, okay, well, we have to go back and explore this. And we went back kind of just to see what we could find. And I think immediately we looked at each other and said, this is our next project. And 3 years later, we had a film, but that was the beginning of a very long process, because everything in this world is a secret.
Talk to me about how did you penetrate this world? And how did you gain the trust of these amazing 85 to 95-year-old men who carry this ancient tradition and this secret world with them?
Well, we spent a lot of time with them. You know, we made the film over 3 years, and over that time, we entered deeply into their lives of the people we were filming. Initially, we had, you know, there was the layer of tourist truffle hunters, you know, the guys that kind of wore uniforms and took tourists into the woods and buried a truffle before they got there, and a dog, you know,
Wow.
dug it up, and then they had dinner. There's that group, which is most of the world thinks when they visit that region that they found a truffle. But then there's this other group of people that don't want to be discovered, that are farmers during the day and truffle hunters at night. And, you know, so, you know, we ended up, it took us maybe 6 months to maybe meet the first real truffle hunter. And, you know, over a lot of wine and espresso, you know, we attempted to bring the most interesting aspects of their lives, you know, what they wanted to share with us into the story, and do it through, you know, you know, carefully considered, you know, cinematic approach.
How did you prove to them that you were trustworthy?
I think a lot of it was that we, you know, the first time we were there, you know, we really we didn't have a camera with us, and we were just meeting people, and we said, okay, we're gonna come back. Michael lives in New York City. I live in Stockholm, Sweden, and we said, you know, we're gonna come back in 2 weeks, and they said, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
And then we came back in 2 weeks, and we stayed for, you know, we stayed for a month. We kept doing that over and over. So I think that was, you know, they realized that we weren't going away, but it was
the pest that wouldn't leave.
Yeah. They understand what's happening in the world around them, and I think they realize that they're disappearing from the world. Not just truffles. I mean, not just truffles.
Right.
It's everything that surrounds it.
Our characters are 85 to 90-year-old characters,
Right,
most of them. And these are people that, you know, at night they're walking, you know, 15, 20 kilometers a night in the dark, on cliffs, in the mud, in the cold, without trying to keep up with them. And like Greg was saying, they're very healthy, and they're virile and happy and joyful, mirthful lives that they had. And because I think they're very close to nature, close to their animals, and they live very, very simple lives.
It is bizarre how, you know, these truffles that they come out of the earth in this very simple, magical way and end up on the plates of people in, you know, Hong Kong, Dubai, New York City, Paris, and for, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars. So there was I guess there was an absurdity to that too, that was important to us telling the story, to capture this difference between, you know, between classes and how they, you know, had this bizarre interaction.
Yes.
There's a black market.
Yes.
That happens at 3 o'clock in the morning in this little town that nobody knows about except for the truffle hunters and the truffle dealers. And the first year we went there, it had been a drought. It hadn't rained close to 6 months. And we went to the town during the day, and we asked a storekeeper, is there a like 60 or 70 bunch of 80-year-old guys in front of your store trading truffles at 3 in the morning? He says, no, I would know. I've lived here my whole life. There's nothing happens out my window. I'd hear about it. And of course, the truffle hunter said, go there at 3 in the morning. And there it was. 3 in the morning, it was alive with these men in trench coats. It was raining with these hats on, and this car pulls up and it opens the back, and it's the whole town reeks of truffles. And all these truffle dealers ran to the car and was trying to make a deal to try to buy these truffles because there were none around. And then they just scatter. They scatter like nothing ever existed down these alleyways, and all the deals are made next in the shadow of a church. That's how secretive this whole little world is. It's fascinating.
It all starts with the fact that the white truffle, it can't be cultivated. So no one knows why a white truffle really grows where it grows and how it grows. Everybody kind of has their own theory. You talk to somebody and they think it's when lightning strikes a tree that a truffle will come out of it. Some people think it's dependent on the phases of the moon. They you know, everybody has their own little theory. Some people, there's even water diviners that they use to find truffles, and they're actually quite successful with finding them. But I guess the one, you know, really the one dependable thing is the people who do it, the truffle hunters that we film with. First, they have dogs that have the ability they have a great sophisticated sense of smell, and then they train them over 3 years. So they become obsessed with finding truffles. That's what they live for once they get the scent. And but they also have this knowledge. It's a knowledge that's passed on. It's guarded. And sometimes it's passed through the generations. But then, like some of the truffle hunters that we would film with, they keep these detailed records of every time they find a truffle, they write exactly where they found it. They write where the moon was, what phase of the moon it was when they found it. They write the last time it rained, the time of year. So they have these detailed maps that have this tremendous amount of information, thinking that if they understand what conditions brought about a truffle, they understand the tree that gave that truffle, because the truffles, they only grow on particular trees in the region, usually oak trees. And if a tree produces a truffle one year, it will likely produce one the next year if the conditions are the same. But that knowledge is guarded so secretly, and no truffle hunter will ever share that with any other truffle hunter, or even us. We were basically blindfolded when we were brought into these spots.
So you have these incredible characters. You've gained the trust of the town at this point. Let's talk about how you chose to tell this story.
It started with this feeling of the place. This idea that this world, to us, it felt like a fairy tale. And that was really before we even started filming. We knew, we didn't know what the stories were. We didn't go into this world with a story. We knew there was a feeling that we wanted to capture. And we started sort of experimenting early on with just different ways of capturing it. But it became quite clear to us pretty early on that we wanted this world. We wanted the audience to feel what we felt while we were in this world. We wanted to bring the audience into this fairy tale experience that we were living while we were there. And that's what led us to this idea of these locked-off frames. We wanted each frame to feel like a page in this story that we were bringing the audience through. And we wanted to think about, we wanted to think about how we could use the documentary form and use the verite documentary form, but use it in a different way. Because I think, there's generally, when you're following real life, you're handheld with a camera following people around. And we thought, well, what if we do something different? What if we just set the camera up and just observe? And it took us a long time to figure out how to do that, because it's very tricky, because the world doesn't want to fit in a frame. And that's why we shot the film. We shot the film over 3 years, because we would shoot one shot a day at most. And sometimes we would shoot nothing, but to get that one shot, it was like waiting for all these different aspects of the filmmaking process to come together. Yeah, it was like waiting for the right moment, waiting for the technical things to be right. Like, is the sun where we want it? Is the light, does the light look nice through that window that we're filming? And then also finding frames that we weren't really looking for the most beautiful frame, but we were looking for the frame that helped the audience feel what we were feeling. Like, what is the frame that is going to bring the audience into that space? Let them feel the warmth of the fire, let them feel the cold stone floor, all those things, and they're little, but when you're watching the film, hopefully you have a chance to study these images, and through doing that, you're brought into them, and you're brought into the subjective space of the characters' worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the dogs. We had the idea to put a camera on a dog's head. We thought that through the canine perspective, we wanted the audience to see how the dog sees, and come to understand, how they react in the forest, their relationship with the truffle hunter, and experience this unique relationship that they share with their companion. So, in contrast to the main footage that Greg was just talking about, this footage, was continuously in motion, and it was driven by this, this frenetic action of the dog in pursuit of the prize. And we looked through the camera at the footage, and we felt like we were the dog,
Yeah.
and we felt the energy that the dog had. and it was great. And then we also mounted microphones, little tiny microphones like the size of a piece of rice, and we mounted those on the dog's paws, on the dog ears, and the dog's nose, little tiny ones, and also the same with the truffle hunter.
The scene with the clip. Sorry.
The clip.
Yes.
Yeah. So the clip is between Aurelio, a truffle hunter, and Carlos, not Carlo, Carlos, who's a younger truffle hunter,
Okay.
and who wants Aurelio's secrets. And he's, of course, by coincidence, he's met Aurelio in the woods when he's truffle hunting, and thinks, "Oh, I bumped into you. Maybe we can become friends." And Aurelio, of course, is not that stupid, so he knows that he's not going to give anything up. And this arrangement, this was something they both spoke about. Carlos would ask us, "I know you're friends with Aurelio. Can you please ask him if he would share secrets with us?" And I said, "Look, this is up to him." And then Aurelio would say, "We hear about this guy, Carlos. He met me in the woods twice, and he's trying to steal my secrets and follow me and mark my paths." And so one day they got together at this lunch table, and he decided to go for it because he thought Aurelio was talking to people in the town. It's a very, very small town where he lives, Aurelio. So he's saying, "Well, maybe you're, in that conversation, you're old and you have these secrets, and I want them." And he's saying to him, "You have to do what I did. I was 6 years old when I started, and I've been doing this 80 years, and you're going to pay your dues. I'm not going to tell you anything." And that's why at the end of the scene he says, "Well, if you had children, you tell them." He said, "Never." And that's how he feels.
I just want to end by talking about kind of coming back out to the real, the real world, out of the fairy tale of the film and the beauty of your film, and into the real world, and kind of the danger of losing this culture.
I guess we approach a project almost like cultural anthropologists.
Mm-hmm.
We're concerned, obviously, about communities disappearing. We have an obsession with looking for these. Trying to search for worlds that have held on to these deep-rooted traditions and have retained their identities, in this world where, globalization and technology really has stripped away a lot of the souls of many, many communities.
When you're looking for these worlds, as we are, where you're looking for places that have held on to their identity, that haven't been consumed by globalism, you realize how rare they are. I mean, it's just, when you travel, when you travel around the world, everything is becoming so much the same so quickly, and technology is transforming the way people all around the world live, and completely removing them from the cultures that they've grown from. And there's a tremendous good that has come from technology, and there's a lot that we want to move away from in the past, but I think there's a lot of value also in looking back to the past, because there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom that's there too, that's also being lost. And when you explore a world that is still held on to that, you get to pull those little pieces of knowledge and wisdom, and you get to take them, and we hope we tried to weave that into the story. And it's, it was simple knowledge, it was simple wisdom, but we saw the people that we were following, we saw how rich their lives were, we saw how fulfilled they were as human beings, how just simply healthy they were. And there were simple things that they held on to, but they really, they made their lives meaningful.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I could go on and on.
Thank you.
So much
Thank
more.
you, Caroline. Yeah, thank you so much.
It's a movie that I love from the bottom of my heart. It is such a joy to watch and to know these characters in this world and enter into, frankly, a delicious feast for the eyes, ears, and one can only imagine for the palate. Thank you.
We hope you taste the truffle when you watch it. We hope you can taste the truffle.
Yeah.
I think you can.